The Civil War was the deadliest war in American history. The war started because the Confederate wanted slavery and the Union did not. The 13 Confederate states were South Carolina, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Texas, Virginia, Arkansas, North Carolina, Tennessee, Missouri, and Kentucky. The war began on April 12, 1861, when the Confederates attacked Fort Sumner, a Union fort in the harbor of Charleston, South Carolina. After the war, Confederate states were remitted to the Union during the Reconstruction era after each ratified the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which outlawed slavery.
The Union included the states of Maine, New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Kansas, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, California, Nevada, and Oregon. Abraham Lincoln was acting president.
The border states in the Civil War were the slave states that didn't leave the Union. These states included Delaware, Kentucky, Maryland, and Missouri. West Virginia, which separated from Virginia during the war, was also considered a border state.
This is the letter that we found as best as the website could interpret it. Confidential something, ANVA, Army of Northern Virginia. 31st of August, 1864. Brigadier General J.A. Early, Confederacy General Lee, directs me to enclose the enemy's signal alphabet as deciphered by some of our signal cops here. We read their messages with the faculty, and the general thinks it may be of service to you, but advises that care be taken to conceal the fact of our knowledge of the alphabet. The enemy also reads our messages, and the general suggests that your signalmen be put on their guard to prevent the enemy from obtaining information by that means. Very respectfully, your something. Charles Marshall. Lieutenant I can't pronounce it. Colonel, yeah, and something. The important people were the President Lincoln at the time, and the Union generals, Ulysses S. Grant, George McClellan, and Robert Anderson. Lincoln declared that he would do everything necessary to keep the United States united as one country. He refused to recognize the Southern states as an independent nation, and the Civil War erupted in spring of 1861. General Ulysses S. Grant led the Union Army during the later years of the Civil War and later became the President of the United States. General George McClellan led the Army of the Potomac during the early years of the Civil War and also ran for president against Abraham Lincoln. Starting as a major and ending as a brigadier, General Robert Anderson is best known for surrendering Fort Sumter, the first engagement of the Civil War.
Pause the video. Welcome to Mac.
The first main event of the war was on April 12, 1861, the first Battle of Fort Sumner. On April 12, 1861, South Carolina, on islands of the shore, the Union Fort Sumner had just been resupplied, and the Confederate soldiers began shelling the fort from the mainland. The soldiers stayed there for 34 hours until Union soldiers surrendered. No soldiers were killed by enemy fire.
Charlie, it's my turn.
The First Battle of the Bull Run was the first major land battle of the war. It occurred near Manassas, Virginia. The Union forces from Washington, D.C., totaling 28,450, under the command of General Ivan McDowell, attempted to surprise 32,230 Confederate troops. The Union suffered nearly 3,000 casualties. This is the battle that earned Stonewall Jackson his name.
Both of these battles happened in the same month, 10 miles apart from each other. The Confederate Fort Henry fell on February 5th. General Ulysses S. Grant's troop and 7 gunboats from the Union began shelling the fort. The Confederate troops evacuated Fort Henry and moved to Fort Donelson, 10 miles away, and Grant's troops followed them. Union casualties were 2,321, while the Confederacy suffered more than 15,000. The Union could now head south through Tennessee. This was the Union's first victory.
The Battle of Hampton Roads was the most famous and well-known naval battle of the Civil War. It was also the first battle between two ironclad ships, the Monitor and the Merrimac. In the end, neither side was declared the winner, but this battle got nationwide attention and also revolutionized how warships were built. The Battle of Antietam was the first battle of the war to take place on northern soil. It was the bloodiest day in the American Civil War, with a total of over 23,000 casualties, including more than 4,800 killed. In fact, more Americans were killed on this day than any other day in American military history.
The Emancipation Proclamation was an executive order that Abraham Lincoln signed on January 1st, 1863. It proclaimed the freedom of the 3.1 million slaves in the Confederate States of America. This enraged the South and turned this into a total war to destroy the Old South.
The Battle of Gettysburg was the bloodiest battle of the war, with a total of 46,000 casualties, nearly 8,000 of which were killed. It lasted 3 days and was known as the turning point for the war.
Sherman's victory in Atlanta boosted Lincoln's popularity and helped him win re-election. This was a very important moment in the war.
After evacuating Richmond, General Lee's troops were soon surrounded, and on April 7th, Grant called Lee to surrender. On April 9th, the two commanders met at Appomattox Courthouse and agreed on the terms of surrender.
Difficulties.
I'm just trying to scroll down, but then you go over back up. Some new stuff was rifles that allowed them to shoot farther away. Hot air balloons were also used. Submarines were in this war. It was the first industrial modern war.
Leading causes of death were tetanus and drowning. Over 165,000 people died.
There was no treaty signed to end the Civil War. The surrender at Appomattox Court House was a military surrender of an army which was surrounded. The Confederate government never surrendered, and even had it wanted to, the United States government would likely not have accepted.
So basically, the South ended up losing, and the North won.
Okay.
Okay, Lila, come here. She's looking up something.
Gonna do a selfie here.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation of the Civil War.
Now we have to put the links.
Okay, so the links we had for this were
Timetoast.com/timelines/10 most important events of the Civil War time period. Historynet.com/Union generals. Historynet.com/Confederate generals, and Shmook.com/Civil War people.html.